I call this regular session of the Wetzel County Schools Board of Education to order. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Mr. Castello, followed by a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Well, welcome to everybody with this snowy weather out there. Glad that you could make it. Next thing on the agenda is a presentation of the Leader in Me program with Melanie Miller and Hannah Sapp.
We brought Jeremy Kelch with us too.
Alrighty.
Good evening, Mrs. Bonner, Mrs. Porter, members of the board, and everyone in attendance. 3 of us were given the opportunity to go to Leader in Me in Orlando last weekend to talk about 7 habits of highly effective people, and they're using the Leader in Me program, which they use those habits with kids in school. So I'm going to pass out the habits to remind all of you what they might be. Then we're going to talk about what we saw in those schools and why we think it's important for our students. If you two want to start talking about what we saw in school, that would be wonderful.
So like she mentioned, the schools that we visited utilize the Leader in Me system, which draws upon the 7 habits of highly effective people. One of the things that we noticed with the schools that we visited was that this starts very young with the students. Some of them were as young as kindergarten, 1st grade, and they're learning these habits and they're able to apply them to everything that they're doing both in and out of school, and it extends from the students through every level of staff, administration. Everyone in the building is kind of bought into these systems, and everyone has a role within those systems. So I know that we have a lot of students in Wetzel County who have leadership potential, and just finding ways to tap into that potential would be something that we're very interested in. We thought that the way that this was done with the schools that we saw, and also talking with other teachers from across the nation. I know that we were able to, I think Melanie was going to talk about a teacher that she had interactions with.
Get to work a lot with a teacher from Oklahoma, and they have the same demographics that we have in school in Oklahoma. The same issues we have with attendance, test scores, kids feeling that they're a part of the school, feeling connected to their school. They are now what is called a lighthouse school in Leadership in Me. That means they fully have integrated Leadership in Me in their schools. Every year their attendance is increasing, they're getting better attendance, better test scores, they're getting better school surveys. Kids, parents, and teachers are all happier to be in that school. I think we all know that when kids have ownership of what they do better. And I think Hannah was just talking about kids, everyone's a leader in these schools, and these kids were amazing. We had kindergartners talking to us, running programs, running little demonstrations in classrooms.
Yeah, they all knew their role,
They all knew their role.
embodied that. And it extended out into the community too, which I know that's another big thing that we talk about is how can we partner with the communities in Wetzel County and bringing them into what we're doing in the schools and vice versa. And all of that kind of played a role in the Leader in Me.
I think something that really impressed us was every classroom had a mission statement, and they revise it every year. But the kids are in charge of creating the mission statement. And it's not like, I don't want to work today. It's, we will learn this, we will do this, we will be this, we will achieve more every year. One thing we saw, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So myself and Miss Snyder from Long Drain had the opportunity to visit Idlewild School, and down there they had the opportunity, like they said, every kid in the building had a job. So they were in charge of all this. And one of the biggest things we've seen, they had leadership notebooks. And what that did, and what I would like to instill in my school when I get back, it literally had everything on there from their test scores, but they owned up to it. And then when they had their conferences, they weren't parent conferences. They were student parent conferences. So the teacher was really just kind of the facilitator, so the student was taking ownership in what they have to do. And when you looked around the building, anywhere you looked, and myself moving into a new building, I'm excited about this, is there was positive messages. Anywhere you look, the kids were excited, but the kids were taking ownership. I had the opportunity to actually go through the leadership notebook of a little girl from India. And she was in 5th grade, and the way she went through that, how she was having communication skills, I know every educator in here knows with the technology and the phones they have, kids do not know how to talk to people. They made the students communicate with people in all the buildings, with the people in the community. They had the businesses, and they had to talk to them about their leadership notebook every month, and it just made them buy into what they were having to learn. So that was the biggest takeaway I had from it. And the teachers didn't do anything when we went through the buildings. The kids literally led every aspect of what that we witnessed when we were there. So it was very eye-opening. And the 7 habits, I think that all of our kids can benefit from that. And like they said, our staff can benefit from that. Not just in the school system, but in our everyday lives, just being better people. So it was one of the best conferences that I personally have ever been to. So I thank you for that opportunity.
Yeah.
I feel it prepares kids for life outside of school.
Yeah, they were
These
in
transcend
charge of setting their own goals, which is a life skill. I mean, that's something that we all use every day in our lives, even now. So them being able to set like measurable goals and knowing when they want to hit these goals and what small steps they're going to have to take to meet these larger goals for themselves, it was really impressive.
Advocating for
Yes,
themselves.
yes.
It's a skill our students don't have.
Yeah, and I think it would be very beneficial to bring this into our schools in Wetzel County and set our students up for the future in that way, yeah.
It sets the community up for success.
Well, I know that TSA, FFA, 4-H, the students, when you watch any of them, they picked up their leadership skills and go, and this is wonderful that it's going to be more than just certain people and
It'll
certain
be
programs.
every student, every staff member.
Mhm. And I know that one thing we heard was it takes a while to implement. I think they said it was like a 5-year process, but that's something that even if it's just as simple as, you're going to create a goal for yourself and you need to, as teachers we do that every year, but like doing that for students and saying, okay, what do you need to do in order to meet this goal? What steps should you be taking? Where do you want to be by this date in order to make sure that by the end of the year you're here? I think that would be a really good place to start with that for every student.
And you could tell that this was ingrained in the students. It was not a dog and pony show. These kids absolutely were all in on this. They knew their role. I had a little guy that led me around the building, and he was on his iPad and he had that timer. And it did not matter what was happening. When that timer went off, by golly, we better move. It was really, and that was his only job. Like she said, the goal, you set one goal. I think, and sometimes we set entirely too many goals, and then they get lost in the wash. But you have one focused goal, and then if we do that every year, by year 5, hopefully everything that we're trying to put in takes place, and then every student, every staff member is building this leader in me, and that's what I hope our goal moving forward is. Like I said, this was an amazing conference.
We want it at Magnolia.
How far into the program were they at that school?
They were a lighthouse school. That means they were fully implemented. All the schools that we visited were fully
They'd
implemented.
been in it for 5 years?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But the woman I spoke to from Oklahoma, they did it in 3.5 years instead of 5 years. She said even in the first year you're just kind of introducing all the habits, and you work on one. And then she said they showed growth the first year.
Yeah, and I think also it depends on community buy-in, staff buy-in within the schools, how quickly you're able to integrate those things.
I think all of us in this room want better for our kids.
So the modules, you don't have to okay, module 1 year, module 2 years.
This would, for every school, this would be different.
Yes.
Similar but different.
Yeah.
Can you kind of talk a little bit more, visit on the parents, how you said it's or guardian, having a one-on-one with the student, like an evaluation, or how?
So like Jeremy mentioned, we got to see their leadership portfolios that they created for themselves, and everything that they put into the portfolio was, like, it started with their personal mission statement, and then all of their artifacts that they were including were ways that they had personally worked toward that mission statement for themselves. So then, the teachers truly were like facilitators in the room, like every interaction, because we went to a middle, we was K-8, but we saw like the middle school classrooms. They had 8th graders who were mentoring 5th graders, and they meet like once a week to check in with their mentees, and
They go over their leadership
Yeah.
notebooks with their
and
eighth
so
graders.
we were able to just talk to the teacher who was facilitating this, and the 8th graders were really helping the 5th graders who are new to the middle school part of school, whereas the 8th graders are getting ready to leave and go on to high school, so they were able to kind of help the 5th graders with, this is how you want to do this is where you want to see yourself when you get to 8th grade. So it was very much, they all kind of knew, because I think they had started learning these habits when they were in kindergarten. They could rattle off like, this fits under this habit, and it was like organic conversation. It didn't feel like they were like,
It wasn't scripted.
no. And so I think that when they had the parents come in for like the open houses and things like that, the students could just show them, this is my portfolio, this is how I'm meeting this goal for myself. And so, like you said, they just like took ownership for the things that they were doing, and so they were much more bought into those things, as opposed to, like, if we get to see any parents at all at a parent-teacher conference, it's usually
Us talking.
us talking to the parents, and the students kind of like, don't tell them.
And what I like is, like, there's not gonna be any extra work on the teachers at all. Actually, I think it's gonna take work off the teachers, because the kid is responsible for this. And like I don't like to recreate the wheel, so I literally asked both principals that I seen, I said, can you send me your notebooks? And then obviously I'll take the things that work for my school, and then the other ones I'll throw out. And then obviously I'll put all the notebooks together, I'll hand them to the kids, and the only thing the teacher's gonna have to do is facilitate that. I could even build that into my schedule next year, so there's time that's allotted for that. And then the kid is the one that has to take ownership. If the kid doesn't take ownership in it, they're probably not gonna be productive, and that's when you have to have that intervention that they were talking about. So I think this will actually take a little bit of workload off of our teachers, but don't use the word portfolio. Leadership notebook.
Leadership.
Bad connotation around that word.
I think one of the things we saw that we really liked is they track the kids tracked everything. They
Yeah,
tracked their own
attendance.
attendance outside, they tracked, did we beat this standard? Like, first period, 70% of us have met this standard, they got to color it, the graph in. And then I don't know, if we were on different tours in the same schools, but in the hallway there was a big sign, and it was a celebration, and everybody put what goal they met. I can now do long division, and it was just, every grade was a new goal.
And they even
So-
track their own behavior.
They
So-
did.
So they would, I can only imagine if I would have been in trouble in school and had to come tell my parents, this is what I have done. Because some of our parents, we send them through the PBIS app, but some of them don't look at it. But can you imagine sitting down in front of your parent, and when you get the behavior part? Yeah, that'd be really eye-opening for not only the parent, but the kid.
Yes.
I may have missed this somewhere in the presentation. Did you all interact with high school students at all?
We were middle school.
I was a K-5.
So the schools
Well,
that
we
we
were paid.
actually visited only went up to the 8th grade, but
Uh-huh.
then the next day of the symposium, high school students came in, and we had a panel where it was like a conversation with those. I think there were some 11th grade students on that panel, but we didn't actually get to see a high school. That
Right,
was
but they
one of
were,
the-
from
They
what,
were there.
from what your interaction and listening to their presentation, they were as favorable toward this
Absolutely.
as anybody else
Yes,
Yep.
at any grade level was.
yes.
I
We do
appreciate that your comment on not putting more on the teachers, because that's been one of my
Yeah.
my things that I've been pushing, is trying to lessen.
And
their
they
workload.
said that. They said, do not go back and overwhelm your teachers.
Right.
They said, if this is gonna work, one goal, because if you come in here, come in hot, you're gonna shut every single person down. And that's why I was joking about the portfolio world. If I say that word in my building, I'm done. I know that.
Leadership.
I have one more question. You may or may not have gotten this far.
is there an investment, financial investment to implement this program?
There is, I'm not aware of what that is, but I know that there were materials that needed to.
We've actually been on this journey for a little over a year.
Yeah, we're actually on this journey, yes. Originally, January 3rd, before the, terrible weather started, you know. We were gonna have the 7 habits training for all employees in the county. Day one of it, it's a multiple day training, and then February 10th, we were going to have the second day, which with all the weather issues, we had to push that back, okay? So that was the first phase that was going to happen. Those employees that were able to go to the training, and Mrs. Porter and I attended that as well. The leadership symposium is what they called it, not necessarily the Leader in Me conference. But we learned more about Leader in Me, and were able to do school visits. I'll be totally honest with you, I really wasn't gung-ho about going to visit a school. But honestly, it was exactly what they're telling you. The students, they did everything. Heard very little conversations from the adults. I mean, some, but the students led us around. They told us about the happenings in the school, and we heard conversations of students working with each other and interacting. We saw examples of how they analyze their goals and how they show that they've accomplished them, and then they move on to the next. It is truly an amazing process, and it encompasses the adults and the students, because it's based on the 7 habits of highly effective people. And the schools, what's interesting is they had their 7 habits written on the school walls throughout the school, and then the kids could talk about like being proactive and how that played into everything. One of the habits is putting let me see how we get this. Put first things first. You got to handle certain things first before you can move on to the next step. I mean, all these things are really, really important principles, and we're not necessarily reinventing the wheel. Sometimes we're just refocusing ourselves. And yes, going back to the costs, we've already figured into the cost. It's a multi-year project. It was, I think, overall it's maybe 40,000 for the whole district, but you're getting 200. But actually, we're getting it $150-some-thousand bonus money that we wouldn't have cost us because when we bought in. So I'm already looking at trying to figure out what the training costs will be for their schools, because they mentioned in their summer academy about possibly doing the Leader in Me training with their teachers, so they're ahead of the game. So we've already paid for our training for our employees. This would be additional training to teach them how everything interacts with the kids. So I mean, that's where we're at. We're not adding a bunch of additional dollars.
I think the point is that the cost is minimal compared to the benefits that
Yes,
we're going to
yes,
get from it.
and
That's the only thing.
And there was one other thing that I forgot to say this, but this is not just used for education.
No.
All the Fortune 500 companies,
Yes.
they are all bought into this wholeheartedly, and I mean, if our students, hopefully they can go work for those companies and they'll know what that means right when they walk through the door. So that was another big thing. Like I said, this will benefit every single person in our buildings just to be better people. And it can be used until the day you die. So that's because I know sometimes we buy into something, then 5 years later we forget about this. This is going to help these kids forever.
I think this is the most excited I've been at a conference. I think we were all excited every night talking about it afterwards. We'd go to dinner and talk about it. We're excited to bring this to our kids and to our community.
It's a life skill.
It's a life skill.
Yes.
Anybody else have any more questions?
I asked too many, I'm sorry.
Okay. Anybody else want any? Okay, thank you very much for coming. Okay, our second presentation is the Thrasher Group.
Good evening. My name is Craig Baker, Principal in charge of architecture for the Thrasher Group. We were asked to do a high-level analysis of multiple pieces of property throughout the county, with the main goal being to determine, first and foremost, are any of these pieces of property feasible for the construction of a proposed consolidated school. There were multiple pieces of property vetted, some identified by ourselves, some identified by some staff members here at the county. And ultimately what happened is we were able to narrow it down to 2 pieces of property that we're going to present to you this evening. Now I want to preface this by saying that you're going to see some things in here that may look as if we're a lot further into the design process of a new school than what we are. But in order for us to do our proper due diligence to identify whether these parcels are feasible, there was a certain level of high-level design work that we needed to do. And what I mean by that is we had to look at state Board of Education design requirements. We had to look at policies that identify sizes of spaces based on programs, high-level discussions about programs that we've had of what might be in this school. We had to look at proper sizing of gymnasiums, proper sizing of auditorium spaces, cafeteria spaces, what areas might be shared, so that what we could ultimately do is develop a building footprint, aka floor plans, so that we could take that high-level 20,000 foot view floor plan and start to piece it onto these pieces of property. And then the next step that we had to do, so before we wasted anyone's time with presenting anything, is we had to look at it we had to put our engineering hats on. And we had to look at things from a engineering feasibility perspective. What I mean by that is upwards of 40% of your costs on a project of this magnitude are going to be in your dirt moving, your infrastructure costs, meaning your utilities, site access roads, bridges. That's a significant piece of the construction of the new school project. So in order for us to properly vet these pieces of property so that we could determine first if they do work, so that we could second move into what we would call a more thorough due diligence phase, okay? So what you're going to see here this evening is diagrammatic floor plans that identify spaces where classroom wings may be, where entrances may be, where specialty spaces may be, so that we could then place those on the pieces of property and start to look at access into the sites, where students may be dropped off at, is the property sized appropriately for the need. And then Kenton's going to dive a little bit deeper into each piece of property. We narrowed it down to 2, so that we can sort of go through some of the positives and negatives for each, and theoretically allow us to move forward to what would be the next higher level due diligence phase, which is going to be more involved with environmental and probably some geotechnical engineering and such, which we can talk about later. But I think with all that said, I think now's the proper time to turn it over to Kenton. Kenton has been vigorously working on this for several weeks, and he's eager to show you what he's come up with. So we will have the documents on the screen, as well as the 8.5 by 11 documents that you have there. Feel free at any point in time, ask questions. We will answer everything we can answer at this point in time. And if there's something we can't answer, we can certainly come back to future meetings and discuss this. So, we'll get started.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kenton Blackwood. I'm the senior designer at the Thrasher Group. Let me grab one of these. Thank you. Let me describe real quick what it is that we're looking at. The massing plan that Craig was talking about, basically what we've done here is we've taken all of the components based on the student population count, with a little bit of room for expansion as required by the state, come up with generally some massing. So it looks like with this plan, and we're combining the high school as well as a middle school, and having some CTE components to it as well. This is what we've come up with, and this plan may change considerably, but this is a starting point, just as Craig said, for comparative purposes. We're looking at trying to get as tight as possible of a footprint so that we can have as much room on whatever the building pad ultimately is, on whatever site is ultimately selected. But there's a limit to how much you can squeeze the various components of a school facility. You know, a lot of spaces require immediate access to the outside. Obviously, the admin space, you know, the auditoriums, the entrances for the schools and so forth. When you get into the VOTech, any sort of STEM programs, those sort of things, you want to have access directly to the outside grade. Beyond those things, there are other spaces that need to be connected to spaces that need to have direct outside. So ultimately, you can only squeeze a building down, a school building down so far, and you know, then what you have left over, essentially, you have the opportunity to stack on top of each other. So what we're looking here is basically a three-story structure that would be all under one roof, so to speak, one contiguous facility. And this is what we utilized to look at the two sites that we have been reviewing most recently. If you want to flip to the first site, this is the Blake site. It is out Route 7. And let me describe to you exactly what it is that the graphic represents. The yellow line around the perimeter, and it's not showing the full extent of the parcels of property as we understand them, that is the boundary line. The dark green area is the areas of cut and fill, basically the areas where through the earthworks we've got to move a lot of material, and those are fairly steep slopes. And when I say steep, I'm not talking about cliffs, basically a 2-to-1 slope. That's a good rule of thumb for starting any sort of kind of preliminary design work from a site standpoint. Within that, you can see kind of the lighter green area. That is essentially a building pad, if you will. That's essentially a flat area that we've carved out of the side of the hill. You can see the school, again, based on the footprint we were looking at it a minute ago. In addition to that, you've got a football, soccer stadium that includes an 8-lane running track around it, bleachers and so forth. Softball, baseball field, again, both with bleachers, and each one of these would have press box and so forth, and the football field would have a field house that could be utilized if arranged in a way, ultimately could kind of serve for like restrooms, concessions, all those sort of things. So again, we're looking at this point really in broad strokes, square footages, just general massings. So you can see on the Blake site, one of the things immediately, and we tried to develop a building pad that could fit on the Blake site itself. Anybody that's familiar with the site, clear down by Route 7, there's a creek, and then it goes up a hill. The property doesn't terminate at the top of the hill, so we don't have the opportunity to kind of create a flat spot on top of the hill. We're working on the basically the slope of a particular hill, and no matter how we adjusted the building pad, no matter where it went, it seemed that the grading required in order to get at a minimum, the minimum components required onto this building pad, the development seemed to kind of spill over into the two adjacent parcels. And that is probably one of the, I guess, biggest disadvantages for the Blake site. Does anybody understand? Do you see what I'm getting at there? Okay, very good.
One quick thing, Ken. So we had to start with a baseline goal. Okay, so the baseline goals that we looked at were all the facilities under one roof. Okay, all of the facilities, including athletics, parking, greenhouse, etc., all the support facilities on one site, and expansion possibilities. We wanted to have the ability to expand in the future. So that was our baseline goals that we were trying to meet. Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah. So with that, you can see the kind of the turquoise areas, those are miscellaneous recreation areas as well. Kind of to the top above the school there, that, you know, is a recreation area. And it exceeds a good bit by what the state typically requires for an exterior recreation area for middle schools, for instance. The turquoise area just at the upper left of the football soccer field would be the used for track and field events and so forth. So you can see there's very little room for future expansion with this particular site. Let's go ahead, if you would, flip to the next page, and we'll just run through these quick, and then I'll kind of circle back to kind of the overall pluses and minuses as we see it. This is the Fluharty site on Route 20. Again, the dark green is the cuts and fills. We're essentially building on a slope. You can see the school, we've got the same major components, the school, the football soccer stadium, the softball, the baseball field, and then a variety of turquoise areas representing outdoor recreational areas. And the light green is the kind of the flat building pad. Obviously on this one as compared to the other site, there's a significant amount of parking in addition compared to what we saw in the previous site plan. On this one as well, that turquoise area down on the kind of the lower right there is that's a practice football field, just to give you an idea of what we're talking about scale-wise. Again, you can see here we're well within the limits of the overall property. In fact, we're not even close to coming to the property limit. Just to above on the plan, kind of to the west of the softball and baseball field, up above that there's an existing cemetery. It's not a large cemetery, but we've tried to steer clear of that with any sort of development. So you can see this road here, and anybody familiar with this site, off of Route 20, there is an existing bridge that comes off of 20 that goes over, and there's currently a railroad crossing, and the road, the existing road kind of snakes around, and you don't really see it very well in this image. But it's not a road sized adequately to really for a lot of two-lane traffic. So we looked at putting in a new road once you cross the bridge. That would necessitate another smaller bridge, about 60 feet, to cross the stream. And then you can see it kind of goes to the left. There would be another railroad crossing, and then you would get over onto the basically the development where the earthwork begins, and the grading, provides the building pad. So that's kind of looking at both sites, kind of just a real quick overview. Let me talk real quick about kind of some of the advantages and disadvantages.
Any questions on those diagrams before we get into the positives, negatives? Okay, good.
You might want to mention there's a cemetery on both sites, I believe.
Yes,
Yes.
that's true, yes. The other one has, on the Parks property, it is not in the area, it's not pointed out on there, but it is down below and not affected by the grading.
Both of them have a creek that we'd have to have a bridge over.
That is
Right.
correct, yes.
And the
Yeah.
Blake site is actually 100 or 60.
No, the Blake site,
It's a 100
the
foot
bridge
bridge.
would be, we estimate it would be at least 100-foot bridge, while the Fluharty Bridge would be approximately 60 feet. The creek's a little narrower.
But in these drawings, currently, there's one way in and one way out at this point, in this concept right here,
That
right?
is correct, and that is true of both sites, yes. Yes.
On the Blake property, there where the school is, where it's real close, how much distance you say from the school to the property line?
On which side?
Right there.
Upper side.
In the teal.
On
The
upper
upper side, to the property line?
Yeah.
That
'Cause
is.
it's real
the-
close here.
Yes, the width here, probably the best way to explain this, that parking width in there is about 60 feet from, that's 60 feet, so you're probably just about 150 feet in that neighborhood.
So no room for actually an expansion right there.
No, there's really not. You can see on the other end of the school, the green area out there, that would be about the only area that you would have room for expansion.
Right.
Yeah.
But there would be nothing to prevent the orientation of the building or these other facilities. This is not locked in.
No, heavens no.
It
Right.
doesn't have to be this way. We
No.
could turn, somebody could turn this or shift it and everything.
Yes, and somebody is, you know, if they want to try that, that's fine. We have looked at a whole slew of different iterations, and this proved to be about the most effective from the standpoint of.
It would be guesswork on our part.
I understand,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that's a totally valid question, yeah. Nothing we present here tonight is said instead.
It's diagrammatic, really to set the square footage of kind of what we need to see high level kind of how that fits on the site. So you could shift it a little bit, but again, as Kenton said, tried a bunch of different orientations, even with this diagrammatic level, and that seemed to be the one that worked the best, so.
Yeah, so running through some of the kind of, the pluses and minuses, if you will. The drive from the point of access to the nearest highway up and around the school. Basically, the minimum a bus would have to go before it would begin back down over the hill. They're very comparable on both of them. Blake is about, in the neighborhood of about 250 feet longer, but they're comparable. The slopes of the drives are again very comparable. And, you know, with this iteration, we're in the neighborhood of about 9% on the Fluharty, 9.5% on the Blake. One of the big things that, from the standpoint of complying with operational needs and state formula, is the number of parking spaces. On the Blake site, we're looking at about 510 parking spaces. On the Fluharty site, about 770. So let me pause there for a minute if I could. If you look at what those formula that I referred to kind of indicate as a recommended minimum, you're looking at about 450 parking spaces required for a typical school day. That does not take into account parking for events. You've got an auditorium that could seat 800 people, a gymnasium 1,100 seats, and again, these are not set in stone. And a football field of approximately 3,000, probably a little over 3,000 seats. So for the auditorium and gymnasium, you would want 400 and 500 seats probably to accommodate that. That's, just for people visiting specifically for an event. For the football field, assuming 3 to 4 people per car, you would need 700 to 1,000 parking spaces, maybe more. So in that regard, the Blake site, you're already well under what you need. You're barely over what you need for a typical school day. Again, Blake, a little over 500, Fluharty, almost 800. As far as the light green areas, the disturbed, and the light green is the building pad. Blake, these layouts are showing about 25 acres for Blake and about 28 for Fluharty. It's only 3 acre difference. However, the disturbed area on Blake is about 50 acres, just the amount of land you have to disturb to get to that smaller amount of building pad. Where the disturbed area for the Fluharty site is about 46 acres. The earthwork for Blake is about 200,000 cubic yards more than the Fluharty site, again, to provide less usable area. We talked about the bridges.
So Ken, with that, so high level, more excavation at the Blake site for a smaller piece of usable property. So just, again, high level, that's where it counts.
The excavation, does the material have to be taken off-site to someplace, or can it be?
It's gonna be spoiled on the site. Look at the
Yeah,
cut and fill on site.
Exactly. These are, what we're showing here are balanced sites, and no material has to be shipped anywhere.
Okay.
Now, ultimately, if it turns out that we can find some efficiency, and a lot of times that comes down to, is there somebody out there that wants that sort of material, there might be an effective way to get rid of it. But that's the sort of thing, we're way ahead of those sort of considerations. At this point, again, we're trying to look at apples and apples as much as possible. So we came up with both these that were balanced on site. So with one, we're looking at 2 million cubic yards, the other one about 1.8. Yes, sir.
Does the state require a certain acreage for building a secondary school, a site that has so many acres of available land?
There is recommended criteria, as a, for instance, for a high school, for this population count, the minimum required would be about 16 acres. That doesn't take into account any of the athletic facilities or any of the parking associated with those things. And therein is the big difference. Yeah, there is criteria, but most of that criteria is a recommendation rather than a requirement.
I can remember way back in the day when we were doing construction in Wetzel County that the state had recommended site acreage, et cetera.
Yeah, and that gets you set to make sure you're not, way below that threshold and squeezing it in. There's obviously exceptions to that.
Right.
Yeah. So going into, again, kind of some of the pluses and minuses, we talked about the parking. One of the big, I guess, minuses, if you will, of the Blake property is it appears that negotiations would have to take place with more than one parcel owner, which could, although not impossible, could prove to be challenging. With the kind of the less space and the squeezed down site, one of the things that with this particular approach to the design that is, I think, is something that you want to try to achieve is to have proper separation between the middle school entrance and the high school entrance. I think it would be much, really looks like the Blake site would force those both to be on the same face, if you will. And The Fluharty site allows for basically one of the entrances to kind of be around the corner. Really creates the opportunity for two separate, not just two separate entrances, but two separate identities, really, for the middle school and the high school, which I think is a big plus. The Blake property has very little room for outdoor recreation areas. You could get in the minimum required, but there's not going to be room for some things which I know some counties like, in particular for high school, like tennis courts and that sort of thing. We talked about the room for expansion. Let's talk about kind of environmental impacts.
Let me stop you a second.
Yes, sir.
Is there any major pipelines on the Blake property?
Not that we are aware, but we can't say definitively no. We've looked at the mapping that's like publicly available, and have not found any. That is kind of, that's what we need to get to. That's a very important consideration.
Is that the same thing with the Fluharty property?
Exactly,
Any
yes.
major pipelines that we know of?
That we know of, correct,
Okay.
yes. So both sites have stream impact, which kind of brings in the regulatory considerations associated with the Army Corps of Engineers. What the implications are ultimately, we don't know. That's one of those things where you have to engage with the Corps and raise those specific questions and have them look at something, and that can be a laborious process. There's a lot involved. So both sites, doesn't seem to be insurmountable, but both sites have those sort of issues potentially. They also both have floodplain implications, where we're showing the grading, the toe of the fill slopes in very limited areas go out beyond what the publicly available floodplain maps show as the limits. One of the flood maps, anybody familiar with it, it is those are very general. If it looks like you're going to be encroaching with development on floodplains, you need to talk to the county flood management personnel and so forth, and nail down specifically what those elevations are, where you're talking about development, so that we can strike exactly where that line is going to be. And if mitigation is required, that's simply a civil engineering thing that we take care of in another area of the development.
To put your mind at ease on that, you won't find a parcel of land this large in West Virginia, particularly Wetzel County. We do a lot of work in McDowell County. If it's not on a hillside, it's in the floodplain. That's typically what we find, right? So all of these things Kenton is mentioning are not insurmountable. They are things that just require further due diligence, which once we're kind of done wrapping this up, we'll tell you what we perceive the next steps to be, so that the board can consider action for the next phase.
So the floodplain impact on the Fluharty site is minor, is the way the civil engineers are describing it. It's less significant. It appears that the toe of our slope, as we've got it shown today, is not encroaching upon that floodplain line as much as the Blake property. Some of the advantages at the Fluharty property, again, you've got the room for the practice football field, you've got room for up to 8 tennis courts. The fact that we've got enough space to kind of spread out and have the 2 roads come up and access the area around the building is again kind of a big advantage when it comes to event traffic and that sort of thing. So that's kind of I think most of the pluses and minuses that we've seen. I think there is the distinct preference preference that we have of the Fluharty site, that it seems to be more usable, it's gonna be more flexible, and it's gonna provide for, expansion in the future. Both of them, like I said earlier, both sites have the bridge consideration. The Fluharty site also has the railroad crossing. So that is an additional component that the Blake site does not have. But that is, again, a fairly easily taken care of.
I have a question, and
Yes.
Mr. Castle already brought it up. Did you consider putting a second way in or out of each of these spots? I'm just concerned with safety issues if
Sure.
something would happen, to be able to get out.
Yes, with both sites don't have an immediate secondary in and out. There would be, it would be possible to acquire additional property and try to get a secondary road out of potentially either site. But again, that's looking at additional site acquisition. and
Even if we
land
didn't
development.
use both of them except in an emergency, it would be fine.
Yes,
Well,
correct.
that's just what-
And one of the, kind of the philosophies of safe school design is having a single source of people coming in and out. You can just imagine, you've got a roadway here that's a few thousand feet long. If you had security cameras down there, and you know who's coming up the hill, who's entered onto the site. And then, when there are times, the rare periods when a facility is not in use, you have the opportunity to put a gate up and kind of keep at least vehicular traffic out.
So that's a change in conventional wisdom, kind of, from back in the day. There was a preference for an escape route and stuff like that, that's not so much
Yeah,
emphasized now.
I think just due to the prevailing concerns associated with somebody that has ill intentions of getting onto the site, you have reduced your required point of monitoring to one place. It's very similar to the new philosophy in the school entrances. Visitors can only come in one spot. So with that, what other questions can we help you answer?
Has there been any drilling on any of these properties?
No, and that, Craig, do you want to talk about kind
Yeah.
of what's next?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, as I mentioned, these studies, we'll call them, were really to kind of vet out any glaring concerns, right? So we've identified major floodplain issues, we've identified access, we've identified cemetery, burial areas. We've identified that they fit, the buildings fit or don't fit. So our recommendation would be, for the next phase of this project, would be to narrow it down to one piece of property, the piece that seems to make the most sense at this point. And then we enter into what would be the next phase of due diligence. And this is going to be more intensive due diligence, where we would have to conduct our environmental studies. We'll do a wetland delineation to identify any streams that are on site that need to be dealt with. We would start coordinating with the local floodplain coordinators to determine if a further study is required to fill what minimal amount we're filling in the floodplains. Geotechnical engineering, huge thing we would need to do, we would recommend. And what we would do is we would take the general footprint, the layout that we have here, and we would go out there and we would drill a series of boring holes. And that's going to tell us a number of things. Is the site undermined that we need to be concerned about? Do we have subsurface issues where there's mine voids, pyritic sulfur issues? Are we going to have to do deep foundations? All the things, once again, they're not insurmountable, but they're things that could ultimately be a deal breaker. or it could also serve as an opportunity through the property negotiation process. So, and that takes time to do it properly. That takes time to do a little more due diligence into what the utility availability is. When you drive up Fluharty, you see there's propane tanks that are heating the homes. You know, how do we deal with that? Those types of things. So we would do the necessary pieces of due diligence that would ultimately get to a point to say, yes, 100% unequivocally, this piece of property is worth purchasing. This is what some of the challenges with the property, what the factor is that it's going to increase the development cost of that property, and then that will allow you to begin the negotiation process for a purchase. And it comes down to a handful of things that we would need to do to make sure that the purchase of this land is a smart purchase and that it works.
So those actions can be taken without purchasing the property?
Yes, sir.
That's just part of the process or whatever, that if they want to consider selling that property, we're allowed to, or you all are, somebody's allowed to examine it and
Yes.
drill and poke around and everything.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And we handle, within our company, we handle all aspects of that with the exception of the geotechnical engineering. So we'll handle the flood study, we'll handle all the environmental, we'll handle all of the utility infrastructure stuff. But we would be the ones that help coordinate the geotechnical engineering. And what we would do, there are varying levels. We don't want to spend more money than we need to determine whether this piece of property works or not. But we want to spend enough to make sure that it does work. So, whereas once we determine that it's a good piece of property and you purchase it, we may go back out and drill 20 more holes to help us properly size the foundations and such for the building.
Right.
But at this point, we want to do just enough to identify any potential road hazards.
And these investigations have taken into account, or will take into account, available utilities like electricity and gas and
Yeah.
water and all that.
We've done preliminary investigations of those things.
Okay.
And have kind of a starting point idea just to determine, are these sites, do they appear to be viable? So we've done some legwork on that. We've got a good feel that, these are worth exploring more, but there are still formal discussions that would need to be had with the utility providers out there to make that determination.
So what is maybe you said this again, but what is the total acreage of the Fluharty property?
I do not have the overall acreage of the site.
Pretty sure it's around
I don't know
120.
if you all have that.
I think it's around 120.
Okay, how about the Blake property?
I believe it's just over 60.
Twice, essentially twice the size.
Now, on the Fluharty site, we had 770 parking spots that we were looking at. That can be expanded on, like considering for the visitors auditorium football? Is there room
Yes,
for that?
absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, there is room to expand that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, things like the practice football field, the overflow parking, if you will, that can go down in the floodplain. Those are the sort of things we could put down there on the level.
I have a question, if you can hear me.
Oh, I forgot to
Can't.
say, we have a board member that's ill, Christine Mitchell, that's on by phone.
Go ahead, Mrs. Mitchell.
So, am I to assume, I'm sorry for my voice, am I to assume that the property owners are motivated sellers, or have they ever been approached? Do we know that?
Yes.
Yeah, we've spoken with
We've
them.
spoken with both of them.
So they're both willing to sell the property only, mineral rights, or?
Nobody's willing to sell mineral rights anymore. But yes, Mr. McPherson and I have met with both property owners.
Okay.
But if we, I don't know who's gonna answer this. If we purchase the property, they can't bring drilling rigs onto our site or the property we own, they'd have to go in horizontally or something, correct?
I think they can come on the property. I believe they gotta stay so far away from the schools, correct?
They have to stay so far away from buildings, I know.
Yeah. But I think, like the hillside, I think they can go up on the hillside and drill, I believe.
I don't know that we need to worry about that right now. I mean, like, no matter where we decide the site is gonna be.
Oh, I understand that, but I'm
Yeah.
just from
Yeah.
the people out in
Yeah.
TV land, computer land or whatever, can't understand that we're,
So where we are now is we need to decide which piece of property as a collective entity we want Thrasher to then move forward with to make sure. There's no sense doing it on both pieces. They've given us the pros and cons to these pieces of property. But that would be our next step, and then you need a little bit of time to do those.
We do, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's just an enormous amount of research that needs to go into, particularly on the environmental side. We need to get the guys and gals there out on site to walk the property, identify any streams, determine what's the problem.
And that's actually way better. We don't wanna buy a piece of property and then realize we can't do this. So
Oh, absolutely.
I like this approach where we select a piece that we think will work for us for now, for the future, and then go ahead and do the rest of the work. And then, if all checks out, we can get started.
And if it doesn't, we haven't finalized anything.
Right.
But I think we discussed the last meeting, that we wanted to visit the properties before we made any decisions at all.
I haven't been walking through where this is, I think, a field right now, and I've driven by both of these, but I haven't walked you guys actually went on to the properties.
We did.
Okay.
Actually, we've been on many properties by four-wheeler in the rain and the snow. And this is how we got to these two pieces.
Okay.
So for the last 18+ months, and with the help of Thrasher, looking at maps and pieces of property, we've come to the conclusion that we wanted them to vet these two pieces. Because as you know, there's lots of hills and valleys, and there's not a ton of options.
Yeah, I just want to say something. I don't want to focus on the negatives, but we have to pay attention to the negatives. But it's not like you drive around Wetzel County like you can in other counties and say, boy, that'd be a good place for a school, or that'd be a good place for a school. It's difficult, and I've driven a whole lot of this county, and you guys have driven more, and you guys have driven more. It's difficult in this county. So you're going to probably have some negatives about anywhere you go.
Well, some people like different locations better because of distance from where they live and all too. I mean, you're just gonna have that.
That was my next question. How far is the Fluharty property from 100, for instance, or Folsom? I'm sure it's much further, right? Have we done those studies?
Well, we have, so remember, I'm trying to talk about this visually, because the Fluharty property is out 20.
Right.
So from Folsom, you can help me with this, you come back in.
Well, from Folsom, you're probably looking at 30 minutes at driving the speed limit, and it's hard for me to do that.
Remember, you're on camera here.
They know, they already do, they're going to miss me.
Don't worry, you can testify to that.
And then, of course, almost anywhere we pick, I mean, the Blake is closer to the town of 100 than the Fluharty property, and we did do some looking into the amount of time for student butts in seats comparably, which means that if we would take how much time kids would be in butts in seats going to Fluharty versus Blake, it's about 1 million miles more a year, is that correct?
Sounds
And
right.
that's collectively, so just like a student in a bus seat. So there are definitely pros and cons to both, but we will put a majority of our kids on a bus for about 1 million more miles per year if we, on the Blake property versus the Flu Hardy. So like, that's just another pro or con versus this. Does that make sense?
That's all students, that's not just 100.
I know, no, that's all students collectively.
Okay.
So each kid would count
That's
into
just hard to
that.
conceptualize, I'm sorry.
I know.
And this is,
Blue Hardy's just 3 miles away.
okay, you get on 20 from 7, and then this would be past Slim Chance? Past there, pretty close? Okay, thank you.
3 miles.
It's on the other side of Slim Chance.
Okay.
Hundred would
Mr.
have
Castle,
100
to expand on what Mrs. Porter was saying, to make that make a little more sense,
Sorry.
we looked at that. We have about 2,200 students in the county. And in the New Martinsville area, there's 1,150 kids. Payton City area, there's 300 kids. Short Line, there's 500 kids. And Hunter, there's 250 kids. So that's where all that extra mileage would come from, because you're busing a lot more people.
From
Further
100,
distance.
from 100, you'd either have to come down 7, clear to the 7 and 20 interchange, or come across Barker and down. So either way, it's probably about the same mileage wise. So you're kind of putting 100 at a really longer distance than even Bolton for that matter. So,
But if we go the other route, or looking at Blake, then that does the same thing to.
Put Folsom,
Folsom,
Smithfield area and the short line area.
I'm not sure about Folsom, you would know that more than I would, I've driven it, but I do know the mileage to the properties is within a mile of each other, I think, from the high school. So I don't say if that would make a difference from
Well,
the,
from Folsom,
unless there's a shorter way to go from Folsom.
there is,
I didn't think there was.
get a crow.
But going over,
But from, well, 40, it took me 40 minutes to get here this morning, tonight, and I drove the speed limit. So just to see just how far it is, so you take 40 minutes and then you take a school bus, stopping every 50 feet down the road, you're not, you know, so.
yeah, we know that's an issue, but I do believe from Valley High School, it's like a mile difference. I can't remember, I don't have the numbers in front of me. From Valley High School, it's like a mile difference between the Blake property and the, I think that's right. Does that sound right? That's possible, isn't it? I think that's right.
Yeah, that's
A
it.
mile difference from Blake to the Flu Hardy.
So do we still want to go and physically look at the property? Do you want to do that on your own? And I'm only saying that because as our momentum is going, I do believe that if that's what you wish, that we should then probably schedule another meeting to then make a decision to let them get started.
That's what I was thinking, if we want to not choose tonight, but get out there quickly and schedule a special meeting, so that we can get an answer to them.
Unless you feel strongly one way or the other, I think we should make that decision.
I think we all need to visit the properties. I would like to take time to drive to 100 and to the Blake property and to the Blue Hardy property, which I know where they're both at for that matter, and to run it from Folsom to Blake property.
It's challenging.
It's very challenging. I
it
don't,
is.
I don't think that we need to put 100 in a position they're traveling 50 mile down the road. I don't think we need to put the short line area traveling 50 mile down the road. But,
You
I
also
think
can't
I
forget-
think we need to stop and take a serious look at both properties.
You can't forget even about the kids that out Proctor.
Huh?
There's kids out Proctor.
And, well,
I mean, they're, and they're, and they're,
Proctor too.
they're
I mean,
40
that's
minutes.
right.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
mean,
so,
like, yes. I mean, we're just spread out everywhere, so
I
like
have
when they're
to say
saying
that-
100, or if you're saying
I still have to
Folsom,
say that,
you gotta remember the Proctor kids.
taking all this into consideration, I still think we need to really think and look really hard at the two schools.
And we kind of have done some preliminaries on that, and the price tag for one school is a lot, and the price tag to do two schools is double.
And I understand that, but over 50 years or 100 years, the mileage versus the price, I'd say you're not gonna be too many dollars away from each other. And by replacing school buses and this, and putting kids on the buses, and,
So
You
we
know-
have a starting number
I mean,
for a facility.
you're talking, what's a new bus cost
Well,
for the next 100 years? This is a major decision for the whole county. This is not one little area. Not saying I'm against this, don't
Yeah,
misunderstand what I'm saying, I'm looking at
No,
all
I-
aspects
well,
here.
and we've talked about this a
And-
lot, whether
and
we
I
should do
would-
one or two, and it
But if you
really,
take 100 and 100 in the short line area, Yeah. And bringing them down to this property, that's a long distance, and you just done said yourself, you're talking 1 million miles in a year. That's a lot of miles.
Well, if we take everybody to the Blake
But there
property,
again,
right,
1 million miles is a lot of miles.
so.
And I'm not saying I'm totally against all this, I'm just saying I'd like to look at all aspects of this.
And I've talked with some people in other counties that have consolidated schools, and they said, until it's built, you will lose people from your community to go to other schools that cross the county lines that may be closer to them. And that could happen at all areas, you know, more Payne City may leave to go to Tyler, more Proctor and Northern New Martinsville may go to John Marshall. People at 100 may go to Clay Battelle or Cameron or Marion, right. So we're probably gonna have that happen, and we, you know, I hate to hear that, but once it is built, is what I'm told, they flock back.
Yes.
Now,
I
I
think
would
the
like to do
superintendent
everything we
from,
can to not lose our kids.
No, we
No, we
definitely
don't.
don't want to. I think the superintendent from Marion County is getting a little bit antsy because she knows we're on this journey, and those kids will come back. So,
Maybe this is just a really off-the-wall question. What's a ballpark figure, given the current economy and materials and stuff like that, for this to be built?
You guys sitting down? Go ahead.
Oh, we are right now.
So everything that we've taken into consideration for this, you're just right around 130 million. For one new facility with sporting facilities and such. Now, we've run some back of the napkin calculations for two, and while the number doesn't exactly double for two schools, it's pretty darn close to it, because you have to take into consideration, you're doing everything twice. Roads, water lines, sewer lines, electrical, and it adds up. Whereas if we put everything on one site, the economy that you gain by having a shared kitchen for the middle school and the high school, for only having to build one bridge, for only having to build one access road in, one utility run for each. So it becomes a much larger nut to crack if you double it.
That 130 million, just ballpark figure, that is,
that's not set in stone, Mr. Castello.
I understand that, but that is a fully constructed and fully equipped
Campus.
building, lights on the fields, paved parking lot, turf field,
Bridge over the creek.
bridge over troubled water.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not just like, there's the building. And
No,
then
sir.
No, that's
I've been not associated, I've known people in other areas that have built, and then they have to come back in and add lights, or they have to come back in and add something else, and,
That's good.
what's that?
I said, that's good.
And
I expected you to say,
Well,
more, to
let
be
me,
honest.
no, I don't wanna, here, I'm gonna be a party pooper for a minute here. So that is, I think that is a decent working number. However, that is, let me tell you really quickly how we kinda got to that. There are formulas, both issued, determined or provided by the state, and the industry for construction and so forth, that's gonna say, to build a facility is gonna cost X, Y, Z. That, we know that within a reasonable amount, we've got a pretty accurate, the big variable here is the site itself. And that's what we have yet to determine. What are gonna be ultimately the earthwork challenges, the site utility costs, and so forth. We could say it's gonna cost ABC for, putting in the drive and all that, but we don't know what the properties of the soil are. Like Craig mentioned, if there were to be pyritic material that would be useless for fill, that we would have to cart off site, all of a sudden, that's another potentially major cost associated that we're not factoring in yet. And that's one of the reasons why I think it's really important that we at least get to a starting point where we can investigate a site and really begin to get this ball together. As we make those sort of determinations and the design continues to develop, we'll be able to answer that question with greater and greater accuracy.
I want to ask something I know the answer to, but it's really more for the public than it is for me. Have you designed schools with greater topographical challenges?
Yes.
Yeah. Not by much, but. Yeah, I mean, very often what you end up with is a site where you're talking a complete, greenfield is what we call it, where it's never been developed in any way whatsoever, is you've got not just some valleys, but you've got a mountain. And you can knock the top of that mountain off and fill up the valley, so to speak, to create your building pad. With both of these sites, we're working with this. So we have to cut in here, and that fill goes on the outside. So it's not as simple as chopping off the top of the mountain. From the standpoint of earthwork, there's an effectiveness and efficiency inherent in that we don't have with either one of these sites.
So what we would be doing tonight, if we would take possible action, we're not saying this is the site that we're definitely using and buying it because we need more information. We're just saying, go ahead and continue the exploration. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So we're not voting saying, this is definitely it, we're buying it, and we're going on. Okay.
Thing of it is, you're investing money in something that you may say, when you go look at it and say, right,
Yeah.
no. So why would you want to do something like this tonight and not been able to go look and say, we want to consider this property or we don't want to consider this property? I mean, we're talking major dollars here.
It's reasonable.
Huh?
That's very
Yeah,
reasonable.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean,
Absolutely.
Yes.
it's like drilling a well. If you want to drill a water well over here and you decide you want to move it over here, that guy ain't gonna do it for the same price that he's already drilled this one for. Or, no,
Do you want to talk about when we could all be able to do this?
I think we need to, yes.
And get back together on it and make a,
Then I think we need to wait on Mrs. Mitchell, because I've got a feeling she's gonna be down for a week or so. Maybe we don't want to do anything without her in there.
We're not forgetting you, Mrs. Mitchell.
I've already looked at them, so I'm very familiar with the one. I do have a question though. Are we getting a comparable price per acre? Or have we gone that far? Do we know if one's 3 times as much as the other one, or?
So we can't talk about money in an open session. We have talked about a specific dollar figure with the Blake property, and with the Fluharty property, the gentleman asked for a reasonable offer.
Okay. And which property did you say we involved more than one seller?
If we built on the Blake property, we would possibly have to look into buying more land from the adjacent, because it encroaches a little bit with what we were trying to do, and the expansion isn't as easy. It's not, we can't expand on the Blake property like we could on the Fluharty property.
Even if we don't purchase additional land from surrounding owners?
If we don't purchase any additional land,
Is there additional land surrounding the Blake parcel available for purchase?
I do not know that.
Okay. We could have a special meeting next week, Linda. I think I'll be back among the living by then.
Okay. Okay, so when is everybody available? If that's what we choose.
I would be happy with Monday, because is that President's Day?
It is, but I don't know if I can do Monday.
Okay.
Not that you have to have me for this, but
Oh, it's just,
We're gonna have to, some of us are gonna have to get there too.
no, you have, well, from now till Monday's a week.
Yeah, we all gonna visit together, we're gonna visit separately, because
You're not gonna be able to visit together.
Right. be able to have
I understand
quorum.
that, but when one person goes out there and looks, like myself, I mean, I know where the property is, but that doesn't tell me where the property lines is, and,
Well, and Mr. McPherson and I've
Right.
been to both, so
so.
would you guys be willing to go with us and point us around? That's
100%.
how I wanted to do it.
yes.
Okay.
I believe 2 at a time, at least, I would believe, don't you?
So if,
I mean, if we did all of us, we just can't discuss. I mean,
Exactly.
it's,
Well, Christine said she knows the property, so whether she wants to go look at them or not, or, I mean, yeah, I mean, either way, we can figure that out.
I haven't walked it, but I mean, I know exactly where both pieces are. But I understand it is a big decision.
It is, but that's why we had Thrasher come and do the layout and see where the property lays and what the possible look would be, so you could have an idea of looking on 2D. Would it be okay by Friday?
like she said, she knows what they both are,
Okay.
if she's okay with that.
Mrs. Mitchell, would you want to visit the properties again with somebody else and look at it or not?
It depends on when you go. I'm good not, and I'm good going. It just depends on the schedule.
Well, I'm personally available anytime. I can go anytime myself.
Okay. Monday's best for you because you don't have to take off work.
Yeah.
Monday's okay with me.
That's the 17th,
Yes.
but are you talking about meeting or visiting?
Visiting.
Oh, I was talking about meeting. Like, we could schedule with them on our own if we had to go in separately, because we can't go together, sometime throughout the week or even a weekend if they're available. But then Monday, coming back to meet and say, this is the direction we want to go, or start with.
I mean, we need to make a plan, because the longer we wait, the longer it
That's right.
takes for
Right,
them
we
to
wanna
do
do
their
that.
homework and.
Wait a minute, hold up. 2 weeks don't make that much difference.
I know, but we
Take
did,
time to go out here and look at it and to really look at it and absorb it. 2 weeks don't make any difference between them guys doing their job and jumping in here and doing it Monday. This is just not a fair, this is a major decision here.
Well, if we go out this week, that's what we were saying, this week or this weekend, that would give us Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, for all of us to get out there, look at it, and then come back and discuss Monday. I just like it because the three of us are fine, we could meet days or any time.
Exactly.
Whoa,
But-
whoa, whoa, whoa.
Well, you're not working full-time, is what I'm saying.
Okay, but
But
the
Christine
time-
and Christine are.
The time, yeah, the time frame. I got a doctor's appointment that I've waited 3 months for.
Oh, no, we'll work around that.
Is that all?
No, I just was meaning, no, we'll work around the appointments.
I just don't think 2 weeks will be, to take time 2 weeks to look at everything and is that make a decision or that much?
There's a lot of questions that we don't have answers to until they actually do their
Right.
part, and they
But-
can't do their
but-
part until we,
I understand that, but we're talking, for them to do their part, we're not talking nickels, we're talking major dollars here.
so I'm just gonna interject, we have two pieces of property on the table. It's, you know, what I mean, it's not like we have 20 pieces we have to go visit, there are
Maybe end up being that way.
2 pieces. 20 pieces?
You maybe never know.
We have looked for almost 2 years, with extensive help, and I would love that we had 2 pieces of 50-acre flat property, we could just get this done, but we don't.
That's a dream. I'm sorry, you know what I mean?
That's right.
I mean,
well,
In
I'm
Wetzel
like,
County, that's a dream.
I'm like Miss Mitchell, I don't need to go see them. I drive by them, I'm familiar with them, again, I haven't walked them or tested the dirt. But I know where they're at and access-wise, so.
and we did hire professionals to help with this.
Right.
You all don't have any drone footage or anything, do you, of the properties?
No.
Okay.
You-
We
you can-
have
you can-
drone capabilities, but
You
we
can
don't
Google
have
Earth, if you could Google Earth and look at
Oh,
them.
yeah.
any. Yeah.
I have drone capability.
Yeah, I could do Google Earth if I knew how to do it.
You can come and visit us and we can Google Earth,
We
okay?
can help with that.
I could actually get a drone there and fly.
I'm just admitting stupidity.
For peace of mind and for those to say that, like, you know, I do want people to think we did look at both, and I do, you know, take this in, you know, I don't just wanna be like, yep, this one. I do think, yes, I wanna go look at it, just
Due
don't have to,
diligence.
but just to
Due
do it.
diligence.
And I will gladly go with you,
Okay,
if you drive, I think.
okay, all right, and, somebody, but I would like to do that this week.
Yeah, me too.
And hopefully come back together on Monday, have some discussion and action on our special meeting, if we can do that.
making a motion?
Yes, that was the motion.
Okay, so the motion
Did
is,
you
make
get
sure I
that?
get this right, is that over this next week and weekend, we wanna make sure we all get out there to look at the areas. Then we'll meet on Monday, which is President's Day, since you're off work.
Thank you.
Your appointment's not on Monday, is it?
Yes,
What time?
It is.
in the morning.
Can we
Okay.
please do the meeting in the evening
Yeah.
on Monday?
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, Monday evening is it?
Oh, that's fine. You think doctors are in the evening?
So
Certainly not.
could we do six? Is six good?
I hope, I don't have my calendar in front of me, but I hope so.
I
It's okay.
mean, we could do it
You
to
don't-
be determined
You
time.
don't have to have me for that part.
Okay.
Okay, so again, the motion's been made to visit the properties during this week, only 2 of us at a time, and then to reconvene next Monday at 6 PM to have further discussion or to pick, if at that time we're able to pick one of the 2 properties.
Possible action. Yep.
Okay, so that's the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mrs. Nice. And seconded by Mr. Castillo. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
You guys are gonna be nice.
You said aye.
Oh,
You
did
said
I?
aye?
I
I'm
didn't
gonna
hear
say,
say.
I'm gonna be nice today.
Thank you, I didn't hear you, I'm sorry. Motion passes unanimously.
Well, that's a win.
So,
One more question about the Fluharty property. Did they say they were gonna move the bridge from where it currently sits?
No. So the existing bridge that's there now looks to be relatively recently constructed. We would leave that in its existing location. Now, the one challenge there is that bridge is only 1.5 lanes wide, okay? Yes, it's, I don't know why the engineers did that, but I won't ask that question. But, so, in a perfect world, we would increase the width of that bridge. If you're gonna increase the width of that bridge, you would wanna increase it to at least 3 lanes wide, so you'd have a right turnout, a left turnout, and an in lane, right? Worst case scenario, if we can't do that, we would leave the bridge as is. If you'll notice on the plan, that railroad crossing, you come to it pretty quickly when you get to the other side of the bridge, right? So the concern there is if there's a train passing, do we have enough vehicle queuing space for stacking, right? So what you'll see there, what we did is we made an immediate 90-degree right turn that parallels the stream to gain ourselves some additional vehicle queuing, and then we've shifted the rail crossing, or we would put a new rail crossing down.
Does that existing bridge, to your knowledge, have a weight limit on it of any type?
It doesn't list a weight limit.
Buses drive on that bridge.
Yeah, it looks like it was designed for heavy traffic. It really comes down to a width consideration.
I was more concerned, I wasn't so much concerned about buses, or I was concerned about construction equipment going
Yeah,
across it and everything like that.
that's a big consideration, right?
I just wanted to make sure that in the access, you don't bust a bridge down.
So as a comparison, if you're familiar with the new Doddridge Early Learning Academy, it's their
Yes.
pre-K school, built at
West Union.
in West Union, built on the old football stadium. They had an existing bridge that wasn't suited for large, heavy construction traffic. The bridge was also in the floodplain. So we came upstream toward Route 50, constructed a new bridge prior to any other work being done on the site. So that bridge served as not only the new access to the property, but also for construction access during the construction of the school. So we would propose to do the same thing. You know, we would phase this in a way, and this is really early planning, but we would phase this in a way that we would work ourselves into the property. We would do whatever bridge, infrastructure, road we would need to get into the property before any heavy construction would.
And I'm sure you're way ahead of us, but people out there in TV land or whatever, computer land, they don't like surprises and stuff like that. And none of us want to deal with surprises. Like, oh, now we gotta build a bridge.
Question, if you guys start this and let's say there's no hiccups in the perfect world, how soon would this be a thing?
You mean how soon could be open in school operation?
Yeah,
If
time
we-
frame.
I would say if we are allowed to commence the due diligence that we're seeking tonight within the next several weeks, the end of summer 2029.
Seems like forever, right? But it's not. I mean, it's
4 years.
4 years.
And that's if everything
If everything goes
fits in
well.
place.
Yes. If we don't find anything hidden. Again, this due diligence phase serves two purposes. Make sure you make a good purchase, number one, and also give you a real idea of what this thing's gonna cost to build, and a time frame of what it's gonna take to build.
Yes, but to answer this nice, the preliminary schedule we've put together, that's our target, yeah.
And these documents are just schematics, basically,
yeah.
everything like
Yes,
that.
yes.
The outside design and all that.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, don't even, that's just for sizing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Anything else?
And then we'll meet Monday and then have Mrs. Porter get back to you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. We know this.
Or if you want to
took a
drive
lot.
over here from Bridgeport.
Come right through Folsom.
And start at target.
That's the route you all take. Bridgeport.
Okay, you're in New Martinsville, there's only two roads, 7 and 20. There ain't no,
There is no other way in.
the only other way is get a helicopter. And they got access, they go up to Bridgeport Airport, get them out, helicopter, and down and land.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Be careful going home.
We will, after dinner.
Okay, so that was number 3. We'll move on now to number 4 on the agenda, superintendent's information.
Okay, we'll make it quick. Holly? All right, so I know we've had lots of talk about this rebranding and what's it gonna look like, are we doing, and how much money are we spending. I asked Holly to help me with coming up with a system to gather more information. So Amanda's gonna get that up for you and you'll see it on your screen. We haven't done this, we can talk about it, but it's basically a form that asks some questions and actually asks for input. So it does ask for input on what would a possible end game name be for our school at the end, are we working backwards? There are a couple examples, there are also a place to add in if you have another. Can you guys see that okay? Okay. So I just wanted to show it to you and then to get a little bit of feedback if you would like for us to put this out to gather some more information as we're going through this process. Okay.
So we're gonna start off with, it's just, like you said, it's just gonna be an information gathering survey, nothing super official. It's just for information gathering, that's why I put at the beginning, just this little blurb about, this is your opportunity to give input, to put your opinions on stuff. And then what it's gonna start off with, I can't find where the clicker is, there it is. First off, you're just gonna answer, are you a student, are you an employee, are you a parent, or a community member? And when you click on that, it's gonna take you to the next section. So if you click on, it's really hard to do, because I really can't see.
The person that's taking the survey has to log into something to
Nope, this is
do
gonna be
it?
100% anonymous.
No,
so-
I mean, not,
Well, yes,
Has to
they
go
have
online.
to be on a device.
but they have to make the move to fill this out.
Yes.
We're not sending it to them or anything like that. They have to access this themselves.
Yes, you
Okay.
can have QR codes and clicks, and we can send it home. in a
Okay,
bunch of different ways, yeah.
making sure
But
that,
there's no like logging into Microsoft Word or anything.
Okay.
It's just gonna be a regular survey. So I really have to find that. So like if you start with the student, it's gonna ask them, what school do you currently attend? And then depending on which they pick, if they pick Payne City High School or 100, it's gonna ask them what their plans are for next year. Are you going to be going to Magnolia Valley? Are you graduating this year, so it doesn't really matter, or do you not plan to come at all? Okay. If you pick any of these, it's gonna take you to a different section. It's gonna be the adult section. That sounded bad. The non-student section. And this is where it's gonna ask you, where you currently live. Which attendance area do you live in? Are you more along the drain 100? Up to, you just don't live in Wetzel County. So, that would be more like if you were an employee that doesn't live in Wetzel County. Usually we want the taxpayers of Wetzel County to make these decisions.
There are kids that don't live in Wetzel County too.
That's true, yeah. But, so that's basically, it depends on if you pick a student or adult, it'll take you into just a little understanding of who you are filling out the survey. We want information, but we don't want people to feel like they can't be honest about what they're picking because they're gonna know, they know who we are. No, this is completely anonymous. So no matter what you pick, it's gonna pick you one way. Everyone's gonna end up in, let's just pick one of these, and I'll just pick one of these. Everyone's gonna end up on this section, and this is the 3 main things. The name of the high school, the colors, and the mascot. And right now, I have Wetzel County High School and Wetzel Woodlands High School, which are some options, but we can add as many options as we want. And there's also an other, so people can put their own ideas in. So that's the.
So if they click on other,
they can type whatever they want in there.
it'll give them a chance to type in.
Yep.
Okay,
So they can call it the Brian Castello High School.
Yeah.
And then the second part is the colors. They can pick up to 3. So usually you have 2, but sometimes you have black or white as a accented color. So they could pick black, blue, and red or whatever. They could pick up to 3, but they can't pick any more than 3. They can't go through and pick all of them. They could just pick one if they want. I really want it to be red. I don't care about anything else. They can just pick one if they wanted to.
On the question on this one, when one county, oops,
Good.
I just drove past me what I was reading, there. Okay. I think it would be good, I know you put colors bolded, but I think 1 should be bolded too, so people realize this question is talking about the final
1.
school, not the
Okay.
first 2 that we get together.
We can do that very easily, yep. And then I'll do that for all of them. And then the last one is just the mascot. These are some ideas that have already been thrown out. Bears, black bears, for it's Victor E. Bear. And then of course, there's once again the other, they can put everything. I'll probably put in pepperoni rolls, because that's been my.
So if you hit other, is this thing kind of active right now?
Yep.
Okay, I just wanted to see, it's leaving the line down there, right? Okay.
Yep. So everybody, no matter which way you start, it always ends up in this section with those 3 questions. And then the last question is, when should high school rebranding begin? So we have full rebranding this year, partial rebranding or not this year, but next school year. And then not until the new consolidated school. So, and then all of them will be submitted, have all their answers. And then we'll have it in an Excel spreadsheet that you can very easily manipulate and sort by all the different answers, so you can look at the data and actually analyze the data and see everything as a whole.
So this link can be on our Wetzel County Schools website?
Yep. You can make a QR code and an actual link.
Well, you can make the QR
Yes.
code. That's me to make the QR
So now it says, your response was submitted, and the next line is important thing you can do next. What is that?
That's just, save your response. I don't think it's anything, it's just the general thing. So you can submit your response or save your response.
You can pick one of those 2.
You can pick one of those 2 things.
It's just automatically populated from Microsoft.
You wanted to say donate to the purchase of the school?
No, I'm just saying if somebody sees that important thing that you can
We
do
can change
next,
that.
they're gonna be trying to do something.
Yeah.
Can we wipe that out? Or,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I
We
just
can
don't
have
want,
we can have our own ending, thank you for.
yeah, I don't wanna confuse people
Yes.
that they're,
And
okay.
that's why we're showing you this, if there's anything, any little tiny thing you want changed, if you wanna think it's gonna get better information, just let me know, I can change it very
Well,
easily.
and then by the same token, in the blue down there, it says submit another response. Somebody could theoretically just,
Yeah, it's the trade-off you have if you want, people to have anonymous, you kind of have to let them they could do a bunch of them if they wanted. If you don't want people to be able to do it multiple times, you're gonna have to, like, have them log in, but then you use your anonymousness of the
But
survey.
can we not wipe that part out either?
Yes, I can, actually.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep. If you don't wanna encourage them to do
I
that.
can see somebody just churning
Yes.
through and just, somebody just goofing around, just submitting.
Versus actually going back
to.
and clicking on an original
Yep.
or scanning again. Now, this could be something sent home with kids too, because not everyone's gonna be going to the website. like
Yeah, we can
Cindy-
do whatever we want. We talked about it and we thought, you know what, we really wanna keep this momentum going, so we wanna get some more feedback. We got feedback from kids. I know kids want, they wanna have all their peers give feedback. We know we've heard from adults in the community that would like to weigh in.
Can all the students do this while they're in school? Since they all, because they might not have a device at home. You never know, but I just didn't know if
They
that
might
would.
not have internet at all
Yeah,
devices.
but if that's something they can do during the school day, that's gonna.
Yeah, they've got their
most
laptop
of-
with them all the time.
But if they don't, if they don't want to participate, of course, they don't have to, but it's just an idea.
We just thought it'd be a good way to gather data if you were up for us doing this.
Yeah, I like it.
I think it's
I think we
great.
should.
I think it's great. Thanks for doing it. I think it'll make the community feel like they have input as well.
And we want that.
I really want them just to understand, this is just info gathering, nothing is settled, this is not the final vote. You guys have final approval of everything, it's just information gathering.
I think it's something we should let every kid in the school do, and plus send a hard copy with the kids home for the parents to fill out to do.
Like
And
a-
that way everybody's,
Like a hard QR code. Yeah, we can
when we turn
we
back.
send home newsletters, we put it in the next newsletter, right,
Yeah,
Bob?
and
Yeah,
if you turn-
put it on
if you turn by
social
it,
media.
some day that.
Yeah.
Could we put it in the newspaper?
That way everybody's got a chance to do it.
It's an idea.
Oh, you talking to me or somebody else?
No, you.
Me?
He's not the newspaper guy.
Tonight, he's just a citizen.
Just kidding. We'll talk later. But it
Oh,
can be put
yes.
out there. Yes.
Yes, that will be taken care of.
Great, thank you so much.
If you give me the write-up, it'll help.
We're gonna make some tweaks, and then Holly and I will look at it again, and then we'll get that pushed out.
Thank you.
And if you're driving home and you think of something else, you're like, oh, we should probably do this, just let me know, I can very
We
easily
can look
change
at
it.
it Monday.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
so we're on reports now?
Yes.
Okay, reports.
Mr. Vargas, Mrs. Chambers.
Yes, 1 second here.
She could come back.
So this was brought up last meeting about discussing how field trips are taken and incentive trips. So Mr. Vargas and Mrs. Chambers have worked to gather all of the different things that we do to just kind of give you a summary of how things happen and.
Yes. So Mrs. Porter asked Mrs. Chambers and I to speak with our principals to get information from them on how they set their criteria for their reward trips. Do you need something?
Do you have this electronically?
Yes.
Can you send it to Mrs. Mitchell?
Okay.
Just trying to make sure she got.
I can't right now. It's on my computer.
Okay. Actually, I'll just take
pictures
of it.
Okay.
Thanks.
So, anyways, what I was saying is we spoke with the principals to decide or to get the criteria on how they take the reward trips. Obviously, there are regular field trips that all the students get to participate in and take with all their classmates, and there are also reward trips. So the State Department of Education is emphasizing that schools need to be intentional on rewarding success for both PBIS and attendance. There are many ways they do this, both inside the school and outside the school. So outside the school obviously would be to take some sort of trip. Inside of the school, some examples that schools do are pizza parties, ice cream parties, dance parties, an extra recess or an extended recess, certificates hanging outside the teacher's door, multiple competitions that they do at the school level. Some of them also have a trophy, a traveling trophy. The students can earn Eagle Bucks, Hornets Cash, all that type of information. For PBIS, I'll let Mrs. Chambers discuss that.
I'm in the corner.
Yeah, she's hiding back here.
That's all right.
some of the schools have taken PBIS trips, but some of them have not. Some of them have combined them with attendance trips. The high schools take an occasional PBIS trip, but not often. It's more a grade school experience. New Martinsville School has taken a PBIS reward trip, and they utilize the PBIS rewards inside the school that Mr. Barkus just mentioned as well. Shortline and Long Drain are combining PBIS and attendance to do rewards, and some of them are rewards trips. Hayden City has not taken one. They have one scheduled, but it is PBIS, and it's based off of behavior and how many points the students earn to earn the trip. So those are some of the ways that they have plugged in the PBIS, and a lot of it does go right along with attendance.
So for the attendance piece of that, again, it's more of a grade school experience. Our high schools have not taken any attendance trips. Hayden City Elementary, they're planning their first reward trip for their students sometime this month in February. The students have chosen a trip as their incentive through their communities and schools. One of the goals, the main goal for community and schools obviously is to help increase attendance, and they have completed surveys and talked with their students, and different incentives and rewards were what the students had asked for, both inside and outside the school. As we talked earlier, students are charting their own attendance. The teachers also obviously chart their attendance as well and create competitions among one another. So Payton City Elementary, their plan would be a max of 1 per 9 weeks, but again, so far this school year they have not taken any. New Martinsville School has taken attendance reward trips outside. They were the first county or the first school in our county to attend the attendance collaborative conference with me. That's something that's new from the State Department of Education as well. Okay, so I attend, multiple attendance conferences each year. There's now one there. I take a team with me. Okay, it's a team from a school. And New Martinsville School went last year. Shortline School went with me this year, just a few weeks ago. Part of that campaign is to emphasize rewarding students with both inside the school celebrations as well as an occasional trip. A lot of this is coming from nationwide, still coming out of the pandemic, increasing attendance. And we are seeing that, which is a plus, okay, a huge plus. So we are seeing an increase in our attendance coming out of the pandemic and after we have added the community and schools folks. I heard from one of the state board members at the meeting in December where she mentioned how our 4 high schools all had a attendance rate over 90%. So she recognized that as well. New Martinsville School had 1 rewards trip this year that was for perfect attendance. The others were not based on perfect attendance, okay? They were based on different criteria. The reason why they did the 1 for perfect attendance was the principal and the communities and school site coordinator had looked at their data for the last handful of years, and each year the lowest attendance rate was always in a certain time period for about that 6-week period prior to Thanksgiving break. Okay, so they set that time, the parameter, and then recognized and rewarded the students who had perfect attendance during that time. Shortline School, Long Drain School, and the other trips from New Martinsville School were not based on perfect attendance. It was also asked for us to find out how are the families being notified, and the answer to that is yes. All 4 grade schools indicated they have notified their families in writing how they can earn these rewards. So that's the information for the attendance side of it.
And there's multiple opportunities for all the kids, like it
Correct.
starts over each 6 weeks or 9 weeks or whichever one.
Yes.
So you got sick last time, all right, I'm gonna do better this time.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So if you don't make it to one, you can make it another.
Are, on your attendance, are you taking consideration of kids getting sick and not coming to school?
For the reward trips,
Yeah.
the reward trips are based on a total number of
Perfect attendance,
absences.
but what
Not
about-
perfect attendance, but a total number of absences. So if they said at 4 for 9 weeks, if they have 4 or absences or less, that child can go. But if they have 5 absences or more, then they cannot go.
Even if they had doctor's excuse
Correct.
and things that they
It's
need.
total absences, correct.
And like Mrs. Knight said, there are lots of opportunities that our kids get to be involved in throughout the year, and we do try to let our schools, Mrs. Shepherd, would you like to pipe in?
Ours are unexcused absences.
Do what now?
Unexcused absences. So
they have to have less than 5 unexcused absences for the semester. So,
They would set theirs a little bit differently, taking in like doctor notes in
so if the kids
consideration.
have doctor notes, if they have parent notes, that does not count against them.
Okay,
It's only the unexcused absences.
okay, okay.
And
In
then-
each of our schools, we allow them the freedom to do what's best for them.
It depends on how many kids you
Right.
want to and what your numbers look like there.
Right.
But as far as the state goes, they, I went to the training with Short Line School. As far as the state goes, as long as the kids are not in their seat learning, not actually in their seat, but in the school learning, then they do want us to count that.
The state's focus is total absences. It's not, is it a doctor's note, is it not? Total absences.
That's something I think we discussed in the conference while they were down about,
Okay.
while we just came from, by the way. Okay.
And our
I'll-
attendance,
I'll
and our
go along.
attendance is good, and it's getting better.
Yes.
Mr. Barkus and his team are really doing a good job with focusing on getting our kids to school.
Thank you.
Do you know what the attendance record or percentage is now than here in the county?
I'm gonna run the next monthly reports on Thursday of this week, so I'll have that information at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else, Mrs. Chambers? No. Mr. Barkus?
No, that's all.
Mr. Houston? Mr. Houston is going to show us, did you send this to Mrs. Mitchell, or do we need to send it to her? She has it?
No, I haven't said it like
Okay. I know she was very interested in this. This is what our lead teachers have been working on.
Yeah, make it bigger, please. Okay, so basically, what we're doing is it's not so much revamping, but we're really looking hard at our high school offerings. And the trying to think, we had a meeting February 10th, which was yesterday. I'm trying to think what day of the month it was. But we've had opportunities for our lead content teams. In high school, you have math team, science team, social studies team, so forth. And we looked at the courses that we currently offer, and we looked at courses that we could potentially add to our offerings, since we're going down to the 2 schools. And you know, it could even get better if we can get down to just one eventually. And those are broke down in a way that it's going to give us an idea of just how many regular sections we need. Are we going to need honor sections for a particular course? Is the course with the students going to get dual credits, so they're going to get college credit and their high school credit for? But what I'm saying is all our teachers have had input in this process. And actually the last round was yesterday, they had input. And we're still going to probably tweak that just a little bit based on what they had to say from yesterday, because I haven't received all of their information back yet. But the goal is to put that together and have potential freshmen for next year, sophomores, juniors, seniors, actually go in and try to select classes that they would like to take. And then we'll gather that data, and that'll give us an idea of what courses we'll need.
Could you slow down for a minute?
I'm sorry.
You're going so fast, I can't read it.
There's a ton. I'm sure Mr. Houston can send it out.
I can email you the PowerPoint.
Yes.
But it's just so fast that I'm
Or
not.
email you the Excel file, or share it with you.
But what I wanted to know, so the first column,
Let me go back to the top real quick.
Please.
I had to take a snapshot of this because this is a living, breathing document right now. Many people have access to it and data can change at any time.
okay, so the first,
There's a number of terms, first semesters we have to have before we get get the credit for the year. So 2 terms. I'm sorry, I skipped over. Court, all the way to the left, you mean? Okay, that is the actual state course number,
okay, state course number.
okay?
All right,
And
then
then
it's first semester,
and you have short name, and then you have a title. One
Okay.
issues we've had in
Makes
the
sense.
past, and I'm gonna tell you, you will have certain courses that it's called something at Magnolia, and it's called something totally different at, the different high school. It's the same course code.
Are we gonna change that?
They're all gonna be uniform.
Okay.
Same course code for everywhere.
X, Y, and Z.
And same name and everything.
Same name, everything.
We're not gonna have
No
the 100
mishmash.
version.
Yeah.
And both schools.
Both
high
schools.
schools.
We're going to put this out to all our high school kids, and we're going to try to see what the kids want to take, and then we'll offer those courses, that way. So if you go over to the right, it's terms, that's number of, semester, so that they have to get the credit. Then you have general, if it's just a general course. And then you have honors, if it's available for honors, dual credit courses. Now, there could be some potential dual credits there. There's not any access. We're still trying to figure that out exactly. And then AP courses are marked there. That we know that those for sure will be AP courses. And then you have general ed courses where there's going to have to be an inclusion section at least for that one. And then but there's also potential where it might be a pullout necessary for special education. And then the last column is alternative standards, But concise, clear, tons of teacher input. And the goal is, if everything goes right, our teachers should be able to know what their schedule's going to be before they leave when school's out.
That's good.
Okay? Now, I can tell you that it's not reflected there, but I can tell you that we're gonna add something brand new. We're gonna invite the combo class where we did this year with social studies and English. We're gonna add a math and science next year. And it's gonna be an environmental science and applied statistics. They both merge together perfectly. Opportunity for kids to get 2 credits in one class period, two teachers co-teaching it. And, we know who's gonna teach it before the school year ends. Then we'll give them opportunities in the summer to work on getting everything together. So that's what we're doing, what we've been working on. I think it's gonna be a good thing moving forward.
You won't have all the classes here, will you?
Oh, you mean we?
Well,
Well, if, let's say
Everything that they're gonna offer next year,
everything?
possibility.
it's a possibility that we're going to try to offer. But when we have the kids look at what they want to take, let's just say for the fun of it, that they all have to, freshmen all, everyone has to take algebra, okay? But let's just say for the fun of it that no one selected algebra, then, we're going to have it, but,
Right.
if we only have like 2 kids, there's not ironic, depending on what the course is, we may not offer it. But we've got here's the thing, we have in some of our high schools right now, and that we have some classes where there's only like 5 kids in it, and it's it's a required class. So why are we having a section for 5 kids? We should have cut the sections down and put them together. That's what I'm saying. It's gonna help us do a better job of scheduling. And it should give us do a better job of offering some other things.
And we're gonna get a copy of this.
I will email you a copy.
Okay.
I'll do that tomorrow morning, because I'm not gonna email tonight.
No, there's no hurry to do that.
Sorry, we should have had a copy to you. That's a oversight. We'll get it to you.
Well, you can give it to us, you can give it to us Monday at the meeting.
But it is live, so things are.
Would you like to have a copy of this in your next packet?
That'd be better.
Yeah.
Would that be better?
I think so.
Yeah.
And if you,
But we do have to realize
and if
it's
you want an
still
email,
changing.
if you
It's
want
a
an email
document.
copy, just say, you have my email address. Send it to me.
Okay.
Okay, now, I'm moving on to my next thing, if it's okay.
Yes.
Amanda,
Give me one moment, sorry. Lots of things happening tonight.
I know you, you're phenomenal. I'm just hoping I don't mess this up.
I've never seen Paul go faster than anybody.
Okay, so I'm gonna give you I'm gonna try to be short and sweet. I'm gonna give you, but I'm never short and sweet.
There you go.
Okay, so I was asked to do a presentation on NAEP data, and that is just a national test that the federal government, we may never have NAEP data again here after here shortly.
It might change.
Yeah, depending on what happens to the Department of Education.
We're
we
getting
don't have
political here.
I'm kidding. Okay, so basically, every 2 years, NAEP does a round of testing, and they test grades 4, 8, and 12, okay? And schools are randomly selected for these NAEP tests. Last school year, Long Drain and the Martinsville School, in grades 4 and grades 8, those are only grades in the lower levels that are assigned in NAEP, were selected. And in the high school, Magnolia seniors were selected for NAEP. I'm trying to think I think they just took math, but our Long Drain and the Martinsville School did mathematics and reading, okay? Now, these NAEP results are not Wetzel County schools. They do not release school data. This is just state data and national data. So let's see if this works moving forward. Okay, so this first chart is grade 4 through 8 mathematics, and it shows all of the states that took it. And in fourth grade, 37 of them had significant, what they call significant improvement. Okay, and if they have an up arrow, basically they increased about 2 percentage points. Don't get worked up about this one here.
That's this.
So if we look at fourth grade, it's this graph right here. Oh, you actually guys have it. Wonderful.
Yeah, I made them copies.
Okay.
Yeah, this is all in conference. We just went over this in conference.
Awesome.
Oh, good. Then I'm just going to can I give you just the nuts and bolts of it real quick? Okay. Since you have it in front of you. All right, so for West Virginia fourth graders, West Virginia scored 6 points higher on their scale scores, which is actually pretty good in fourth grade. But if you look at overall percentage proficient, only 31% of the kids in fourth grade in West Virginia were proficient. But that is an increase over 2022, where we were 23%. Okay, so 8% increase in proficiency, which is good. Now, you remember when I was talking about the example about the swimming pool and the Olympics, and if you're going to sink at the bottom, when we're looking at the scores, of above average, proficient, well, when we're looking, and I talked about we wanted no more than our students to have be in that 20%, no more than 20% in that bottom category, okay? Because it's going to be bad. On the fourth grade, the national level, 28% of those kids are in the below basic skills in fourth grade math in the NAEP. Now, when I looked at West Virginia and our test scores from last year, we had 24%, and we had 45% proficient. Now, I want to tell you, it's not the same test. I can't tell you, because it's definitely not apples to apples. Now, we go to eighth graders. When you're looking at eighth grade in the NAEP, there was only a 1% increase in math scores. And 18% of eighth graders, according to NAEP, were proficient.
But again, we have to remember, that's the whole state of West Virginia.
Yes.
It's not just our county. So
Yes.
we don't really know how our county is.
But actually, we're better than that. And I do not know what I did, and somehow I missed when I was typing up my little cheat sheet, that we're better in our county numbers in grade 8 and than the NAEP. Actually, you know what? I do have it. Yes, I did. Okay, so 18% proficient. When we're looking at Wetzel, we were at 32% proficient.
Yeah.
Okay, and then here's what's scary. Here's the change. What's scary in math on the NAEP scores? When I said that 28% were below on basic skills. When we get to eighth grade, it's 52% on the NAEP. Yeah. No, we were at 43, okay, which is not where we need to be, but it's scary when you looks at the state scores. It's crazy. And then the NAEP also was talking about reading, okay, as well. So fourth grade reading, 25% of the kids in West Virginia were proficient in reading as fourth graders. Now, when we looked at our West Virginia score, our scores on the West Virginia test, we had 41%. So, now when I was talking about the below basics, 47% fourth graders in the state on the NAEP scored that. Now, when we're looking at the county as a whole, or fourth grade, 32%, quite a bit better. Now, let's go back to the eighth grade. Eighth grade for the NAEP, 21% proficient. That was actually a drop from the previous year, and they had 42% below basic, which is not very good. But sadly, that was an increase. That was an increase from the previous year. Now, when we're talking about our scores, we were at 38% and 29 at the bottom. So that's the NAEP in a nutshell. I will tell you, and you have it in your chart, you can look at the comparisons with the national scores in West Virginia. We're definitely lower than what they are on the national. I was interested that some of the southern region was higher in some of the national scores, which was, I thought was strange. But
I think what people need to realize too, at least this is how it used to be, and you can correct me,
no,
is it is random.
It is random.
It's not always the whole grade level of the school.
No.
No.
No, you're right about that. You know,
That
exactly.
makes a big difference on which students you're looking at their scores and who actually took it. You can't come up with exact of how the whole school's doing.
And they do for the most part. I think they probably took all our kids last year, but there has been times where they will actually send you a list of names. These are the kids that we're going to test.
We had a teacher, Mrs. Toth, was fabulous, and she used to work for NAEP in Red Brown, so she understood it really well and explained it to those of us that didn't. And there were times where they just went in and picked certain names out and didn't take the whole class.
Well, did you know that Wetzel County Schools had a former superintendent who was the NAEP guru for several years? His name was William F. Jones.
Oh, what?
And that's what he did off and on for several years while he was retired before he went back into the...
Oh, great.
Yeah, but that's all I have. Unless you have any other questions or anything.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Ben?
Good news, I'm pretty sure if I talk fast, I can be done by 9. No, there were two questions. There were two questions, I think, to be answered about calendar and teacher workload. And one, what can we do in the near term? And, we explored the idea of some 2-hour early outs and listened to the whole story because we can get one in before the end of the year. And here's why. Between now and the end of the school year, there are 4 school weeks that don't already have a holiday or an early dismissal in them. And a couple of them fall during Mr. Houston's general summer testing window, and I'm not going to do that to him. So we will get one in. Now, looking further forward for next year, I've got just about had the calendar committee together to start looking at calendars for next year. The funny part is the 2-hour early dismissals that we can put in there aren't part of that approved department event calendar, but when we do that, we'll include the dates that we intend for those to be so that you're aware of what they are. And we'll just include those on the one-pager, and then I'll give Amy Cooley a shout out on the Cooley calendar.
Yes.
That the public likes so much. So I think easily solved problems.
And the schools and everybody else like that. I think that's great.
I appreciate you guys trying to give them more time. Okay. Number 6, superintendent's recommendations for approval of minutes from the regular meeting January 28th, 2025. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Castelo. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Mrs. Nice. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Under personnel matters, we have professional personnel, service personnel, extracurricular. Do I have a motion for approval of the superintendent's recommendations as outlined under personnel matters?
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Nice. Is there a second? I'll second it. It has been moved by Mrs. Nice, seconded by Mrs. Fawner. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next one, ratification of superintendent's recommendation, consideration and possible action on the superintendent's recommendation that a service personnel's unpaid suspension and termination on employment be ratified by the board.
I move for executive session.
Okay, Mr. Costello has moved for executive session. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Mr. Glasscock. All those in favor of going to executive session, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Rest with aye. Okay. Motion carries unanimously. At 8:09, we are going to executive session. Back in session at 8:13, let it be known that when we left executive session, Mrs. Nice moved to leave executive session, seconded by Mr. Castello, and unanimously we left at 8:11. Okay, next thing is routine matters, out-of-state trip. Whoa. I'm sorry, it's your turn.
Madam
First
President.
mistake I've ever made, yeah. Say that a lot.
Madam President, I recommend that the board ratify the recommendation for the unpaid suspension and termination of employment for Jamie Wisterman.
Do I have a motion for approval?
I'll make a motion to, lost my train of thought.
Approve the superintendent's.
Approve the superintendent's recommendation.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Glasgow. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Nice. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries unanimously. Now, routine matters. Out-of-state trips, use of facilities, chaperones, volunteers, the Valley and Long Drain. Do I have a motion for approval?
Excuse me, I'll ask the same question as always. Everybody's been vetted, okay, just people out in the world.
Motion for approval of the superintendent's recommendations as outlined under routine matters.
So moved.
It's moved by Mr. Castelo. Is there a second? Seconded by Mrs. Nice. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, treasurer's report for the approval of payment of bills for the month of January 2025 and for transfers and increases in budget.
First off, before we get into what you need to move on, I do want to talk about the proposed budget calendar. We kind of have to work around certain dates, and there's something I have written on here that we may not want to do, so I want to talk about that. First off, most of these are regular meetings, determining the levy rates on March 11th. We could do that on the regular session. We are required, which we'll come back to that one, that's really the only one we have to talk about, well, kind of. April 15th, there's a third Tuesday in April where we have to have a meeting. We've done it before at 8 a.m. All it needs is 3 people. It's a quick in and out. But we've also moved a meeting to move one of our meetings. I don't know with personnel season if we can make that work. So I put on here, move the April 22nd to April 15th. I don't know if that's ideal. I'm looking at Ben.
We probably need a meeting close to the end of April with personnel season, just because you got a May 1st deadline.
Yeah. So maybe that's not a good idea. Or we could move the first meeting in April up to this April 15th. Or we can just say, hey, let's have a quick budget, or not budget work session, but a quick meeting to officially enter the levy rates as required on the third Tuesday in April at 8 in the morning or 9 in the morning, whatever time you want to do
And we
it.
only need 3 there for that.
We only need 3
You're in and
there.
you're out.
Yeah, we've done that before. If that's simpler to keep our schedule, you like that?
Works for me.
So then let's make the April 15th meeting, what time do you guys want to meet?
I have no life. I can meet at any time, so.
I could meet at any time.
You want to meet 9 a.m.? 9 a.m. on April 15th, the third Tuesday, we're going to have the quick officially entering the rates. And then I put on here an extra meeting. That budget work session takes a while.
It does.
I've got that set for April 29th, which is, I think, is that a Tuesday? I can't even remember now. I think it's the Tuesday after our regular meeting.
April 29th is a Tuesday.
And I've got it set, but I have no preference. We can do that whenever, but normally we have it around the very end of April. I don't know if that works for people here to meet at 9 a.m. and go over that budget work
And
session.
that one takes.
That takes a while.
A while.
I don't shut up for a couple hours probably, so.
I guess the two that would be concerned with probably us would be Mrs. Nice and Mrs. Mitchell.
As long as I have time in advance
Okay.
to work something out, I can do that typically.
Okay. We'll keep that there, but if it doesn't work, we can always change that too. And then you have to work backwards on these dates in May. On May 13th is a regular session. We'll adopt our proposed budget. We'll have to publish it in the newspaper, and you have to give it time for the public hearing to set that up for adopting the final budget. So that's what we'll stick with. I just wanted to run that by you. I'm asking for approval for payment of the bills, which you have in your packet. I also have just a few budget supplements. The Title I School Improvement Grant at New Martinsville School, I believe it's the second year of that. That's just bringing it, we've got I believe a teacher in that position doing some other things there. That is, you just received that grant award of $100,636.17. And there are 2 local donations or local grants that I'm bringing to the board tonight for approval. One of them is an EQT donation. We're so thankful for that to communities and schools at Payton City Elementary. They donated $1,000 towards that program. And then I'm going to go ahead and read these quickly, but they do this every year. I don't always bring them to the board at this time, but the academic awards banquet that we have, there's so many people that donate and companies that donate. So I'm bringing $2,515 to the board that goes towards that. Various donations from Sprouse Building Products, Daily Corporation, James S. Campbell, OD, the Paul Wismack Glass Company, if I said that correctly, Sistersville Eye Care Center. I cannot say that one.
Fahey Levitt.
Say it again.
Fahey Levitt.
Fahey Levitt Insurance Agency, Westlake, Anissa Monso Anderson, and her practice is donated. David Harshberger and his, Pasco Pizza, Payton City Development Authority, JW Tire, Bear Heritage Federal Credit Union, the Flower Basket and Gift Shop, and Dr. Randy Zink. That's what makes up that $2,515. We're so thankful for the community support that goes toward that academic awards banquet.
That's the one out at the Mullahan Center, right?
Yeah.
That's all that I have for this evening.
I move for approval of the treasurer's report as presented.
Moved by Mr. Castello, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Nice. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Okay, now, on this next part, the second reading of revised Wetzel County policies, we approved the first reading at the last meeting. We do have to amend it a little bit after we saw something on there. Do you want to mention it?
Yeah, so on, look at the letters, the alphabet soup here. GCBAR and GCHA. The amendment we're asking for is for the position that Mr. Houston is currently in, Director of Secondary Education, and then it also says Vocational Education and Assessment. Vocational Education was an oversight. That is actually in Mr. Kimball's responsibilities, and it's listed correctly for Mr. Kimball's position. So if we can make an amendment to scratch out Vocational Education on GCBAR and also on page 3 of GCHA.
Okay, that's fine.
So we can go ahead and approve them on second reading, just
I'll have
because.
to we have to approve the amendments first, then
Okay,
I'll have us
that's
vote
what I was
on
gonna
the
ask,
second
okay.
reading. Okay, so I move that we accept the amendments to GCBAR and GCHA as Mr. Barkus just shared with us. Is there a second for that?
Second.
So moved by Mrs. Fawner, seconded by Mrs. Nice. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed. Motion carries unanimously. Now, we're on second reading, so we have the amended policies. I'll move that we accept on second reading revised policies of GCBA-R and GCHA.
Second.
So moved by Mrs. Fawner, seconded by Mr. Castello. Does anybody have any other further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Okay. Board member committee reports.
Tomorrow at 5 o'clock.
Okay, so meeting there. Anything from all time? Nothing? Okay, delegations. First one is Mr. Clegg.
This is so you don't see how heavy I am. I want to thank the board for their ability, board members for their ability to look beyond the noise of the present day and see the future that is better for all the children in the county. Tonight we saw the first glimpse of the future and the new school that may someday come to pass. It has not been an easy path for those of you that's been here from the beginning until today. I think there's only a couple of board members that when I first stood here are present today. Back then I had a conversation with Mr. Lancaster. I went from office to office pitching my new school idea with consolidation. He was stern and respectful in his response to the new school in the future. He hesitated in saying it wouldn't happen, but he thanked me for my wanting a different future. And maybe, though, I should concentrate my efforts on the new tech center. I took it that he believed I should not invest so much time in beating a dead horse as to something that was going to have a future. And in fact, we're talking 4 years ago The tech center was first starting to grow under Mrs. McPherson's leadership. And with J.C. Kimball, it has grown remarkably. Those people deserve a great applause. When I first spoke the words of consolidation before this group, I heard chuckles from in front of me and from behind me. But all that is history now. That's all history. We've stood tall and we've made a difference. It's time we look forward with a single goal. At last meeting, Mrs. Mitchell asked the question of rebranding. She was searching for answers, and each board member here present tonight, back then, seemed to be looking for the same answers as she was. Listening to Mrs. Mitchell and the other board members, I believe they want to give the new school their own identities, but hesitate when it comes to construction crews coming through the door, ripping up floors, along with all indications of past schools. I would hope they see a better way forward in the funding that could cost $600,000–700,000. Now, I'm realistic enough to know a 2.5% cost increase, what $600,000 or $700,000 could easily go up. I have spoken with students from at least 2 local schools. I believe they have more of a common sense view of what is needed for their education than sometimes I have. We often do not give the children enough credit when it comes to common sense matters of how to handle these things that we sometimes struggle over and disagree with each other. I believe the board's time would be better spent not so much on school colors, but in the details of the 2025-6 school year and the mission to give students promised certified teachers. Each meeting, the board should hear about math classes that will be available in school year, what language classes planned to be overall and betterment for the lesson plans. Citizens were promised that if they allowed you to close the schools, the education system would be better. Well, that gift has been given to you, and next year you will have those kids' education, certified teachers, and when Mr. Hudson reviews some of the numbers that he so enjoys talking about, we should see an increase. Our standing in the state after 2 school consolidation should result in that position bettering. Getting hung up on rebranding at any cost instead of improving education by this move is motivation. Promises were made in this room, and now you must concentrate on your mission to improve Wetzel's County students for all children. I have one more thing. Since tonight I'm here as a regular old citizen in the reporter, I'm going to throw my 2 cents into the ring about colors, names, and a few other things. Mrs. McPherson? Aha. These were designed by a young man who's a graphics artist and AI artist in North Carolina, my grandson. I snuck him in. But I told him to take the 2 logos, or the 2 mascots from Valley, the 2 mascots from Payne City and Magnolia, and tell the computer and work with it, not to join them, but to consolidate them. And this is what they come up with. So these are both representatives. So I hope that you will see this and enjoy what is possible in the future.
Thank you. And the next person is Earl Yost.
What I have to say, I've probably just taken that survey that we talked about earlier, carried everything that I have to say, but I'm going to say it anyway since I'm here. My name is Earl Yost. I'm a lifelong resident of Wetzel County. My background is in construction. I'm a member of the Wetzel County Building Commission, and I want to be artist. I also have 4 grandchildren in this system, so I do have a stake in this. As someone who spent a lifetime building things, I understand the value of a good plan, but I also know that how you build matters just as much as what you build. I'd like to talk about the money that Chuck just talked about for rebranding these temporary schools. $600,000 logo, signs, colors, that'll be tossed away in 4 years. It's temporary, and I don't think temporary should cost that much. I know that Magnolia Valley will need to be prepped for the kids that are coming in, so as they can, they'll be into a new environment. That should be for everybody. Let's just name, my thought is to name the schools Wetzel East and Wetzel West. Let the students give each one a single color. Then when we unite in 4 years, they combine those two colors into one school identity, simple and clean. Purely as an example, if we used Badger as a mascot for both schools, each school's mascot could be highlighted with their color that they have chosen. When both schools combine, you already have the mascot and the two colors, so we have commonality. This does two things. First, it saves a lot of that $600,000. Second, it gives all 4 schools, 100, Valley, Payne City, and Magnolia, a shared stake in their future. Wetzel East and West aren't about erasing history, they're about building a bridge. I know that school uniforms will need to be made with new colors. Students from all 4 schools could wear those colors with pride, while maybe adding something like a patch of their past school color. It's a nod to where they've been and where they're going in the future. How will this help all 4 schools? Shared identity, Wetzel East and West create a neutral space where no single school dominates. It's a fresh start without the cost. Collaboration, teachers could work across campuses on joint projects. East-West art show, science fair, anything, all types of things. Savings, most of that money could go towards something lasting like state-of-the-art shops, digital art labs, future rebranding, or scholarships. Things that benefit every student and not just 2 temporary schools. School spirit isn't a logo, it isn't in a logo, color, or mascot. It's in the people. Let's channel that pride into something bigger. Let's show our kids that we're wise enough to save today so they can thrive tomorrow. As a builder, I know a foundation needs to be strong. As an artist, I know colors can blend into something beautiful. Let's do both. Let's build a school that's fiscally smart, united in purpose, and ready to make Wetzel County and all our children proud. Thank you for hearing me out, and I'm sure whatever you do will be good for the county and all of our kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. The next delegation is Vince Monceau.
Well, first, I'd like to say that my wife Kay and I attended the Tech Center open house last week. We were there and saw the future of Wetzel County schools, the programs offered, the faculty and staff, and the excitement of the students that come from all 4 high schools. The teachers had reflected to us that yes, they can come from all 4 high schools, consolidate. They are respectful of one another. They have no issues with the kids coming from 4 different schools, so we're glad to see that that's happening. Hopefully, when we consolidate into 1 school, there would be additional programs in the vocational center. For example, I mentioned plumbing. Try to get a plumber anymore and see how difficult that is. Heavy equipment operations, construction, trade, etc. So, Mr. Kimball, congratulations on your program. Mrs. Porter, congratulations on you as well, and the rest of you, and those of you that had an earlier share in that vision, Mrs. McPherson. So now, as far as rebranding, I have some of the same ideas, maybe not quite the same as the 2 gentlemen that spoke before me. With the first phase of consolidation, we, meaning my wife and I, we encourage spending money on the academic programs to make them stronger, having certified teachers in every classroom, new course offerings in person, not just online, and new equipment where necessary. Now, what we don't encourage, I guess, is spending money on things that don't add to the value of the property or the value of the building. There may be things some people would want done, but if we're going to go approximately $600,000-700,000, we need to be frugal in what we do. But, and certainly things that don't add to the academic programs. But you are to be complimented. You, the Board of Education, you are to be complimented for what you have done in the last months, years. We know you've taken a lot of flack for this, but the students of the future are going to bless you for that, because they are going to get a better education. We thank you, the superintendent, we thank the board member, and we certainly thank those of you that do other programs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lundstedt. Okay, our last person is Mr. Paliska.
I'm gonna do you all a favor, I'm not gonna really speak, but what I would like to talk about, what these guys mentioned, I would like to get some kind of a total cost of the rebranding of both of these schools. I'm not completely on board with this because there's so many changes that gotta be made and everything's expensive. You're coming up with new uniforms and new names and new colors and the fight to get to all those different things. And there's probably 100 more reasons or 100 more ways that we need to change. That maybe we don't know all these changes. I would like to know a true cost of what it's going to cost to rebrand both of these schools for a temporary. I'm not on board with that. You know, I'm on board with let's do the big school, let's do one. But I would like to know total cost and see where we're at with it. And maybe people will decide differently either way. That, and I also want to compliment JC on the tech center and the staff that he has out there, the programs that he put together for our students. The culinary, the kitchen is absolutely phenomenal. And what we are offering the county kids is tremendous. And JC, good job out there and your whole staff. They're all very talented and they're all very friendly. And we got something good out there. We got, and to me, I thought that was I call it the steps to the new school. That's the first opening to the brand new school, is that right there. So, that's all I got.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so with that, date and time of the next meeting is February 25th at 6 p.m. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Caslow, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Nice, all those in favor say aye. Aye. You guys both say aye? Okay, I didn't hear you. So we are adjourned at 8:36.
Mrs. Mitchell still with us?